Right now I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the area I'm in, while it may look like just an ordinary suburb of the greater Phoenix area, it's right around here where one of the most unknown yet craziest stories of World War II happened, when 25 Nazi prisoner of wars escaped from a prisoner of war camp out into the Arizona desert. And we're going to see if we could find any remnants of it today. So let's go look around. In this video, we head to the eastern part of the Phoenix, Arizona area to visit the former site of Camp Papago Park. Camp Papago Park was used as a prisoner of war camp during World War II, and it was from there where 25 Nazi POWs escaped into the Arizona desert in December 1944, leading to one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. Right now I'm on a trail alongside the Crosscut Canal, and I'm looking for a marker where the tunnel was at, where the POWs escaped from. Supposedly there is some sort of monument or marker for where the actual tunnel was at. I learned about this whole thing through a book, this book right here, The Great Desert Escape. It's a great book. I'll put a link in the description to an Amazon link where you can buy the book. But it's a great book, has a ton of information on this, especially because not a lot of people know about this. I don't think a lot of people know that we even had Nazi prisoner of wars here in the United States during World War II, let alone in Arizona. And I think I see the monument right here, so let's take a look. So here it is right here. It looks like a manhole, and I can imagine a lot of people miss this as they're running by or bike riding by. But here it is, a World War II prisoner of war escape tunnel monument. Let's take a closer look at it. It's really covered in dirt. I'll try to uncover it so we get a better shot. But it says, when all escapees arrived at the river, all they found was a bed of rocks, cold, hungry, and dejected. The men scattered and began turning themselves in. The last prisoner was recaptured in Phoenix 1 month after the escape. And it's interesting, the punishment that they received for escaping was that they were given bread and water for the number of days that they were gone. So the guy who was gone for a month, his whole punishment was getting bread and water. The prisoners themselves, because of stories of Germans executing American prisoners of war during World War II, they were worried that they were going to be executed, but instead they were just given bread and water for the amount of days. And in the 80s, they actually had a reunion where the guards from the prison camp and some of the surviving prisoners of war actually came back to Arizona, and they went and visited the Colorado River, which is where some of them were actually trying to get during this escape. And it looks like, unfortunately, someone vandalized this thing too. I don't have any idea why people do that. Some terrible people in the world. Here, I tried to clean it off some, but it's still pretty covered in dirt. But yeah, the tunnel was 178 feet long and came from out in that direction. There's houses there now. Only one building from the camp remains, and we'll check that out in a minute. And they went 178 feet, came out here. They had seen a map where they had seen water on the map, but when they got the riverbed, it was dry. And I mean, they'd even built a boat and everything else, but yeah, they got there, the water was not there, and they were not able to make it to the Colorado River like they had planned. Some did try to head towards Mexico, but all of them were captured. It actually was the largest manhunt in U.S. history. As you can imagine, 25 Nazis escaping a prisoner of war camp during World War II and running around the United States was not a very popular thing, and it created a lot of commotion at the time. But all were captured within a month and returned. I'm not sure how well this is going to come out, but to kind of get an idea of what the tunnel exit that we just saw would have looked like in 1944, here's some pictures of it from the book. It looks like they really put a lot of work into making this tunnel. Now, the prisoners escaped on December 23rd, 1944. It's early September right now, and it is hot. I can just imagine these prisoners coming from Germany and being sent to the desert of Arizona, and having to be in a camp here was probably quite a shock for them. But they escaped in December, and if you've ever been to Arizona in December, it can get quite cold. It was cold and rainy, so most of them ended up turning themselves in after they escaped and realized they weren't going to get very far and how miserable the conditions are. Some of them went out to the hills, and you can see the mountains out there, and some tried to hide out in those mountains for a little bit of time, but they too turned themselves in eventually as well. And as I mentioned, they were all pretty much caught without incident within a month. Another incident that happened at Camp Papago Park was the murder of Werner Dreschler, who is pictured on the left. Dreschler was a crew member on a German U-boat and was captured by the United States military in 1943. After his capture, the U.S. military was able to turn him and used him to spy on other prisoners at the Fort Meade, Maryland prisoner of war camp. In March 1944, he was moved to Camp Papago Park, but unfortunately some of the prisoners there were aware that he was spying for the United States military, and within 7 hours of his arrival at the camp, he was murdered by his fellow prisoners. 7 prisoners were tried and executed for Dreschler's murder, and their executions were actually the last mass execution in the United States. Long before Papago Park was a prisoner of war camp, it was actually a national monument for about 16 years, and then it was delisted and developed by the military after that, and then obviously now there's housing and everything else here, baseball fields and all of that. And even though the land along here is no longer a prisoner of war camp, it is still U.S. government property. And here's a sign where we entered the walkway at. And I mentioned a minute ago that this used to be a national monument. There's actually a notation of that on the back of the sign. And I'm not sure how well you can see it because of the shadows, but it says Papago Saguaro National Monument, POW camp neighborhood. So that's the evolution of this area. It went from a national monument to a POW camp to now a neighborhood. And here's a look at the neighborhood. This was once all a POW camp, and now it's homes. And here's a little timeline of the area. As you can see, National Monument, decommissioned after 16 years, then became the Camp Viejo Yacoy Community, Civilian Conservation Corps, Prisoner of War Camp, and then became neighborhoods. And here we are in the 2000s. There's a loop trail here. And here's a little map showing the area. Here we are. You can kind of see the greater area here. I mentioned that there was one building still remaining from the POW camp. The Elks Lodge here was the Officers Club. It is the only building that still remains from when this area was a POW camp. And there is some military across the street, and you can see some more of the distinctive mountains in the background. So that's our look at a piece of Arizona history that's relatively unknown today, and a really unique yet hidden monument. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.